Hello, everyone. I'm sure you're fully aware that the Video Game Awards for 2024 have just happened. And in my opinion, it was pretty damn great. There were some good reveals, some good awards were handed out. All in all, a good show, but basically what you expect for the Game Awards. But of course, for me and for a lot of people, there was one standout reveal. And it is, of course, the Witcher 4 cinematic reveal trailer. We know The Witcher 4 has been in development for a while, but it is so good to get some proper looks at this new game. Now, of course, this is a cinematic reveal trailer. It's just there to say, hey, the game's in development, build a little hype. Despite that, however, I think there's actually quite a good bit we can glean from these 6 minutes. So I thought we'd just go through the trailer and see what we can find out.
Dearest daughter, I've watched ye grow from a devilishly curious child into a remarkably young lass with much grace, wisdom, and kindness. Take the easy times what shape us, nay. 'Tis how we rise to face the hard times what does that for us. Ye've an heart of gold. Ye've the spirit to overcome adversities aplenty. Darling, sweeten. Today's the day ye fill out your destiny.
Simple start off, really, but we have two figures, the Witcher and this young girl here, who are both going through this ritualistic preparation for something. Even though we don't see a lot of what they're preparing for or what they're actually doing, I do think you get a good idea of how important these ritualistic preparations are for them. Both the Witcher and the two other women who are assisting this young woman here, they very much feel like they're going through the motions. What they've done 1,000 times before, and they're going to do 1,000 times after. And you definitely get the feeling that what they're doing is important to them. Now, we have the young girl here, and she is being prepared by her village to be sacrificed. We're going to hear that in a second when this man talks to her here. And this is nothing new for The Witcher. Villages sacrificing their children is something we've seen before, most notably in The Witcher 3, when one of the local villages that you come across are sending their children into a swamp to a trio of witches that live in the swamp as a way of offering up their kids in the hopes of having a better, more prosperous life. And how that works out basically depends on Geralt. We've also been told a few more things about this trailer and what we've seen here by CD Projekt Red. So one, we know this village is called Stormford. It's in the northern parts of the continent, which is an area on the continent we haven't really gone to. In the other games, we were mainly around Temeria, Oxenfurt, and Skellig, which are all kind of around the middle part of the continent. Other than going to somewhere like Kaer Morhen, we haven't actually gone that far north. We don't know exactly where this village is, but it is meant to be pretty to somewhat isolated. And we also know that this young girl here is named Myoni. And despite this actually just being a cinematic trailer, what we're seeing here is something we are going to experience in the game. Now, looking at the buildings we can see and the clothing of the villagers, it does give off very Witcher vibes. While the fashion does look very different than what we've seen from like Temeria or Redania or Nilfgaard or Skellig, I do think it, along with the architecture, still gives off a very Witcher vibe, which I always get as more Eastern slash Northeastern European look. You can also see the clothes are very heavy, so yeah, this is definitely a northern village where it would be a lot colder. Now, the big part of this shot is actually the figure on the left here, our Witcher, and the sword they have on the right there. Obviously, we know this is Ciri. You guys all know that this isn't going to be a shock here. But that blade, or specifically that hilt, we've seen that before. That is Zyril, which is given to Ciri by Geralt in the Witcher ending at the end of The Witcher 3. Now, if you haven't played The Witcher 3, there are three different endings for the game, but the core aspect of those three endings is the same. Ciri stops the Wild Hunt and the White Frost from destroying the world. But where it differs is in one ending, Ciri can die, in another ending, Ciri survives, but she goes back to her father to eventually become Empress of Nilfgaard. However, the third and most popular ending is the Witcher ending, where Ciri fakes her death and only a handful of people, including Geralt, know that she has faked her death. The game ends with Geralt giving her this sword, Zyril, which is a silver sword for killing monsters, as Ciri now fully becomes, in name anyway, a Witcher. Now, we're going to get a look at this silver sword later on, but the blade part of the sword does not match up from what we've seen in The Witcher 3. In The Witcher 3, that blade is perfectly straight on its edges, no fancy design. There is some engraving on the blade itself, but the actual blade is just a straight normal blade. This blade, however, is jagged at the base, so I guess just the hilt is maybe the same. Maybe in The Witcher 4, when you get a new silver sword, you don't actually change your sword, but rather just change the blade part. Wouldn't really make sense from a realistic standpoint, but then again, this is a fantasy game, and it would make sense that Ciri would want to keep at least some part of that original sword that Geralt gave to her. This also does seem to confirm that the Witcher ending is the canon ending of The Witcher 3. I have some mixed feelings on this myself. I'm not a fan when developers decide to canonize specific choices that we made ourselves, but obviously The Witcher ending is the most popular ending. It is probably the one you could say, yeah, it is the canon ending. Who's going to go into the next game with the Empress ending or the Death ending? But I think it's safe to say the Witcher ending will just be made canon for The Witcher 4. I do just hope that maybe other choices we made across Witchers 1, 2, and 3 can be brought forward into The Witcher 4.
Forgive me, daughter. 'Twere my only choice.
I shall. I shall be the bringer of salvation.
A witcher? Witcher! Whose coin did ye take? Nay, nay, you can't. 'Tis tradition. Chosen she is, by the gods.
No! You chose her.
And there she is, Ciri, the child of prophecy, our new protagonist, but definitely not the new hero. Having Ciri as the protagonist for The Witcher 4 makes perfect sense. Geralt may have been the protagonist and player character for The Witchers 1, 2, and 3. He may be the POV in a lot of parts of the books, but Ciri has always been the hero. So having her be the player character for The Witcher 4 makes perfect sense. Now, Ciri does look a little bit different here. She doesn't look exactly like she did in The Witcher 3. However, I imagine some time has passed. In The Witcher 3, Ciri is about 20, 21, and by looking at this, my guess would be she's somewhere in her early to mid 30s. So maybe by the time we get around to Witcher 4, about 10 years or so has passed. Which would match up with the real world because The Witcher 3 came out in 2015, May 2015 to be specific. And that could also lead into why Ciri looks very different. It's been 10 years. There's been improvements to graphics, improvements to engines, an entire console generation has changed over. So that could also lead to a bit of why Ciri looks different. But my main guess would be it's been a couple of years and Ciri is now no longer the younger. I don't want to say naive because I never got she was naive. She's not as young as she used to be. She's not as inexperienced as she used to be. She's a much more older, grounded person, and I think we're going to see a very different Ciri from The Witcher 3, but a Ciri who is a more natural evolution of that Ciri. She's going to be different, but I think it's going to make a lot of sense of why she's different and how she's grown up and matured. Now, Ciri's armor here looks very much like Geralt's default armor from The Witcher 3, and it's really nice to see that even though Geralt is not there with her, there's still a connection there between her and him. We can also get a pretty good look at her eyes here, although we will get a better look later on. They are the cat-like eyes that are very, very synonymous with the Witchers. So Ciri is no longer a Witcher in name as she was at the end of The Witcher 3. She is a full-blooded Witcher. She's gone through the trial of the grasses. She is a Witcher true and true. Sorry, not sorry to everyone who's going to complain online, but she is a Witcher. Now, Ciri being the PC for this game raises one more question with me, and it's definitely not a concern because it's something I think they could do really, really well with the story. But what is Ciri's purpose now? A person's destiny is a big thing in fantasy, especially in fantasy gaming, and especially in The Witcher. Ciri is a source, she has elder blood, and we'll get into them a little bit more later on in the trailer. But both of these combined, and with just who she is, who her parents are, Ciri was destined for greatness from the very beginning. But that all comes to a head in The Witcher 3. Ciri saves the world. She stops the White Frost. She stops the Wild Hunt. So what is Ciri's destiny now? And I hope that's something they explore a little bit in this game. I imagine Ciri chose to become a Witcher because she feels her destiny has been completed. What else is there for her to do? And I really hope CD Projekt Red explore that in The Witcher 4. I'd like to see Ciri maybe struggle or battle with her inner demons a bit as she tries to find her new place in the world.
Back to the village. Go, now.
Nay! I must save them! Save the village!
Save yourself!
Right, so we can pick up a few little things here already. First of all, creepy chanting. Very Witcher in general. The Witcher's always been a very dark and creepy game, even though it's filled with a lot of light moments and comedic moments as well. It's obviously a bit darker than the average fantasy setting, which I really, really like. But it's really great to see that that darkness and creepiness is still there in The Witcher 4. Now, the devs have given us a bit more background on this scene. Apparently, Ciri is actually already there. She hasn't just appeared when she's put her hands on the girl Miney to kind of pull her back. She's actually been watching for quite a while and is using Miney as bait to lure out the monster. In Witcher 3, Ciri is very good-hearted and kind-natured. When we actually meet her very early on in the game, she's going out of her way to save a little girl and make sure that little girl is well provided for and safe. Which, yes, she is doing here, but I think we're seeing that Ciri's maybe a little bit more practical than she used to be. I can't imagine Ciri of The Witcher 3 willingly putting a child in harm's way to kill a monster. Here she is, but I think also she knows to jump in at the right moment to save the girl. Now, I specifically stopped at this shot right here to get a look at Ciri's medallion. If you're unaware with the Witcher franchise, there are 7 Witcher schools throughout the entire series. The School of the Wolf, the School of the Cat, the School of the Griffin, School of the Bear, School of the Viper, School of the Manticore, and School of the Crane. Each school has its own way and style of fighting, and each member has this medallion they wear around their neck that vibrates when magic is near. For the most part of the series as well, the Wolf School has been the most prominent school. Geralt is from the School of the Wolf. Ciri was trained by members of the School of the Wolf, so you'd actually expect Ciri to have a wolf medallion. And during the ending parts of The Witcher 3, for a very brief moment, she did actually have a wolf medallion. But obviously, that is not a wolf. It could be a cat, perhaps, but I've seen a lot of people compare it to a lynx, and I think it really does look like a lynx. But as I've just listed off, there is no School of the Lynx. So obviously, this is a brand new school. So I do wonder, how new is this school and how long has Ciri been involved in it? Was she there when it was founded? Did she even help found it? Why did she go to the School of the Lynx rather than the School of the Wolf or the Crane or the Griffin? I doubt CD Projekt Red would want to create a whole new school of Witchers just for the sake of it. Obviously, Ciri went to the School of the Lynx for a reason. Now, a big part about Witcher lore is that women should not be able to become Witchers. To become a Witcher, you have to go through something called the Trial of Grasses, which is a bit of magic, a bit of alchemy, a whole lot of other stuff. The vast majority of people who go through it do not survive, and only men can survive it. So obviously, Ciri being a full-blooded Witcher is something in the world that does not exist beforehand, so it's very, very new. And I wonder, is the School of the Lynx the reason why she is a Witcher? Perhaps this new school perfected a way that allows women to become Witchers, and that's why Ciri joined up with them rather than the School of the Wolf or the Bear or the Viper. She had to go to them so she could become a Witcher. Now, that's a possibility, but it's not a possibility I believe in. I think there's another reason why Ciri actually was able to become a Witcher and survive the Trial of the Grasses, but I'm getting ahead of myself because I'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Run! To shelter! To your father! Run!
Now, this monster is a brand new monster for The Witcher 4. It has not been seen before in previous Witcher games. We'll talk a bit more about the monster when we get a better look at it, but CD Projekt Red have said that this new monster focuses on the fears of individuals and uses those fears and brings them to the forefront so they can properly fight against their prey and kill and possibly eat them most likely. And we see that here with Ciri. She's hearing different voices, they're all surrounding her. She can't focus, she's looking around, and she's being easily attacked and getting the jump on. But of course, Ciri, like any good Witcher, has a way of getting around that. So, if you're new to the Witcher series, potions play a big role in the arsenal of a Witcher. For Witchers, their main two weapons are their steel sword, which is for killing humans, and their silver sword, which is for killing monsters. But alongside these swords, Witchers do have a variety of other weapons. They have potions, poisons, bombs. Geralt even gets a crossbow in The Witcher 3. But potions is what we're seeing Ciri use here. And Witchers have a wide variety of potions to use. Some heal them, some make them stronger, some make them faster, some make them see in the dark. Some are even used to make their blood poisonous, so if they're bitten by, like, let's say a vampire, it actually hurts the vampire to bite them. Literally, there are dozens of potions for a Witcher to use. Each one is unique, and each one is incredibly poisonous to regular humans. And that's why Witchers have to go through the Trial of the Grasses, because alongside making them faster, stronger, and just all over better monster killers, it makes them able to survive these incredibly lethal and toxic potions. Now we can see that after Ciri drinks this potion, she develops black veins all along the side of her eyes. We've actually seen this in the opening cinematic for The Witcher 1 and The Witcher TV series as well. And her eyes become a lot more prominent. Now, I tried to look through and look at Geralt's eyes when he drinks a potion in cinematics, and it's very hard to get a look at. In the original opening cinematic, Geralt's eyes don't change that much. They do become a bit more prominent and cat like, but they don't change colour. Here, however, Ciri's eyes change. The whites turn black, the actual color part of the eyes changes a little bit, and the slit in the middle becomes white instead of black. Ciri changes quite a lot, and I think that's down to two possible reasons. One is maybe it's due to the School of the Lynx. Its Trial of the Grasses just makes Witchers a little bit different. A possibility, but I think it's more down to Ciri's elder blood, which, once again, I'll get onto that in a little bit of a second. Right, so we can see that potion was a good choice for Ciri because he's just a little bit better at fighting. I don't think we're going to see a weakened or incompetent Ciri at any point in the game. I think this moment here was just to show off how important the different parts of a Witcher's arsenal is for them. And we are seeing another part of that arsenal here: signs. Signs are a basic form of magic that all Witchers know, and there are 6 signs that we've seen in the games. There is Ard, which is a force push. Igni, which allows them to shoot fire from their hands, Yrden, which is a trap that can slow down or damage their enemies, Quinn, which is a shield, and Axii that allows them to manipulate people and monsters. And obviously here we are seeing Quinn as Ciri raises up a shield to protect herself. But at the same time, this could just be Ciri's magic by itself. Ciri is able to cast her own magic, so maybe this isn't signs, but it does look a lot like Quinn. Right, we are getting a proper look at our new monster here, and this is a Bawook. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize if I am, but I think that's how it's pronounced. This was confirmed by CD Projekt Red, and we can see it is this multi-limbed, monstrous creature, very big, but still has a human look in its face. You can still see its eyes, its nose, its mouth. Obviously, very disgusting, very monstrous, but still very human, which is obviously a big part of the Witcher franchise. The big bads for The Witcher 3 were the Wild Hunt, and when you see them, they're decked out in this spiked dark armor. They've got skull masks on, but when they take them off, they're just people underneath it. They're elves specifically, not just humans, but they're just people. And that's always been a big part of The Witcher. Monsters may be what you fight the most, they may be big and scary, but usually humans are the worst parts of the world. Now, another interesting thing about this monster, the Bawook, is that it is not entirely original for the Witcher franchise. Like a lot of monsters seen in The Witcher, it is actually drawn from real world folklore. And like a lot of those monsters as well, it's drawn from real life Serbian folklore. Creatures like godlings, leshens, and bochens all appear in The Witcher, but can trace their origins back to the lore and mythology of Eastern Europe. In our real world mythologies, a book would hide in dark places, lure people into them so they could eat them, and were deathly afraid of the light. And I think you can get that here as well. It's living in this tight cavern, there's a thick fog, there's no natural daylight or anything, and it has this hold over the local village where it's tricking the villagers into sending it their children so it can devour them.
You cannot change anything.
Right, so here we can see Ciri casting some more magic and drawing on the energy from the earth. She's specifically drawing on energy from some nearby water. This is entirely new magic and it is very different from the basic signs, because as far as we know, there are no signs that allow a Witcher to throw lightning. This is not a sign, this is pure, proper magic. And Ciri is able to do this magic because of what she is. I said it a little bit earlier in the video, but Ciri is a source and she has Elder Blood. A source is an individual who has natural magical abilities. They find magic very easy to do and very easy to cast, but sometimes they can't even control it and it eventually will drive them mad. While individuals with elder blood are descendants of an elven sorceress known as Laura Dorin, who herself was a very powerful practitioner of the magical arts. Combining both of these together has made Ciri incredibly powerful when it comes to magic. Now, an individual does not have to have elder blood to be her source, or vice versa. They are separate, but there are a handful of people in the Witcher lore who are both. Of course, we have Ciri here, but we also have Pavetta, Ciri's mother. There is Jacques de Aldersberg, who was the main antagonist of The Witcher 1. And there was also this kid called Alvin, but to be honest, he wasn't really that important, and nobody even knows what happens to him, so yeah, he's not really worth mentioning. Now, along with being a source and having elder blood, Ciri was trained by a wide variety of people, including the members of the Wolf School of the Witcher, including Geralt of Rivia as the main one, along with Yennefer of Vengerberg, and this has all led to Ciri being incredibly powerful and incredibly competent at slaying monsters. Right. So, two things to point out here. First is the music, because it is brilliant. I loved the soundtrack for The Witcher 3 so much. It is so good. It captures the general feel and atmosphere and tone and themes of The Witcher so brilliantly. I actually use it as background music for my D&D game along with a handful of other games, but it is usually my favorite soundtrack to jump back into. But the big thing to actually point out in this scene here is the use of the chain. This is a nod back to the opening cinematic of the original Witcher 1, where Geralt is in his famous fight with the Striga. But in the original Witcher trilogy, that is the only time we saw that chain in that opening cinematic. It was never a weapon to use in any of the games. So I hope, though, that this is more than just a cool cinematic shot. I really hope we get to use the chain in combat in Witcher 4. And if we can use it, it looks like we're going to be able to infuse it with magic as well. So not only can we use it to lasso up and tie down our enemies, we can actually use it to hurt them as well. And that is really, really cool. If this cinematic trailer is only giving us a brief idea of what the combat will be like in The Witcher 4, I'm going to be very, very confident in its gameplay. Now, before we jump on, one thing I do want to point out is that this fight is quite tough. As I mentioned before, Ciri is a source with Elder Blood. She is meant to be incredibly powerful. But this is a fight she has to work for. She is struggling for quite a bit of it, and she really only kind of wins at the last moment when she's able to electrify the enemy. If you play The Witcher 3, when you get to the end of the game, Ciri is incredibly OP. She's teleporting around the battles. She's hacking through enemies left, right, and center. Nobody is a match for her. She is just carving through everyone. But here, she is struggling to fight, and I wonder why. This could just be a gameplay choice by CD Projekt Red. You don't want Ciri to be OP powerful at the start of the game because it wouldn't really be that fun then, if we were just carving through enemies left, right, and center in the opening hours of the game. So maybe that was just a gameplay choice to kind of bring Ciri's power back down a little bit. But maybe it's also a story choice. Maybe Ciri no longer has access to her magical abilities for being a source and having the Elder Blood. Maybe after the events of Witcher 3 and stopping the White Frost, that just faded away. Maybe she had to sacrifice those abilities to save the world, and that's maybe why she has to go off and become a Witcher. She has to go through the Trial of the Grasses and learn the signs as the only way she can actually properly hunt monsters. But that doesn't really explain the lightning magic, so I'm not entirely sure. I do hope that this, though, is addressed in the story of the game. And of course, like any Witcher, Ciri takes the head as a trophy to prove to the villagers that she has saved them.
She were to go to the woods. The chosen one. It's tradition.
Oh no, no, no.
It's all we wanted. For her to go to the woods, to go to the gods.
Gods? There are no gods here. There are only monsters.
And of course, as I said, it doesn't matter how big and scary the monsters are, the worst parts of the world are still the humans that live in it. Witches are meant to stay out of human affairs. They are not meant to get involved in local politics or enforcing local laws. But of course, for many witches, that's not something they can do. We see that a lot in the original games, along with the books and the shows. Geralt cannot stay out of something when people are in danger. And of course, after being raised by Geralt for so long, that is not something Ciri can do. Here, this little girl, Maione, has died, and Ciri is going to deal out her own justice, but I imagine that will be a choice for us as players to do. Now, CD Projekt Red have given us a little bit more information about this scene here, because apparently there is a way to save Maione. She does not need to die in this situation, but I think we have to ask ourselves, will that even be the right choice? Will saving the girl actually be a good thing? I compare this whole situation to the questline from The Witcher 3, where a village was sending its children into the forest to be taken by a group of witches. In that questline, there are two possible endings. In one, Geralt lets the witches keep the children, at which point it's implied that they take the children away and devour them. But because they did that, the local village is prosperous, everyone is fine, they are happy, and the cycle will continue. However, another ending for that quest is that Geralt makes a deal with a demon of some sort that takes the children away. Whether that's better or worse, we don't really know. But because they did that, the village suffers. Everything just starts to go downhill for them because the witches did not get their children, so the witches punished them. And I wonder if Maione survives, will that come across as the right good thing to do? Because, hey, we saved a little girl, isn't that great? But because we did that, maybe something worse happens later on. Now, as I said, CD Projekt Red have confirmed what we are seeing here in the cinematic trailer is going to be part of the main game, and I think it's going to be the start of the main game. If you played The Witcher 3, you're going to remember the area called White Orchard, which is basically your starting prologue area. It's a small little open world area. It's got one village, a military fort, and a handful of different areas to go to. It's got some side quests to do, some games of Gwent to play. Fingers crossed, Gwent does appear again in The Witcher 4. And it's got its main quest line, which is about hunting down and killing a griffin. And once Geralt kills the griffin, the main plot is able to progress further. Now, all of that stuff with the griffin was shown in a lot of the early trailers for The Witcher 3. So I think what we're seeing here is going to be the same. What CD Projekt Red is showing off is the early prologue for The Witcher 4. I think we'll get to this area where Stormford is. There'll be one village, a couple of little things to do around the village, some side quests, hopefully some Gwent, but the main plotline will be about advancing this story around Maione and the Bauk. And however we choose to end it, once it's done, the rest of the world and the map will open up for us. But that is it. That is the cinematic trailer for The Witcher 4, and I'm so excited. I cannot wait for The Witcher 4. It's going to be great. I know it, even just from this small cinematic reveal. I know it's going to be really, really good. Odds are it's not coming out next year. Maybe 2026, that could be a possibility. But I say we're going to get a lot of information for it next year. Or hopefully, maybe just even a few tidbits here and there. But what do you guys think? Are you excited for The Witcher 4? Did it surprise you when it came up at the Game Awards? I think it surprised everyone. I don't think anybody was expecting it. And what do you think of my breakdown? Is there anything I pointed out that you missed, or is there anything that you noticed that I missed? Do let me know down in the comments below. And if you liked this video, do give it a like and a comment because it greatly helps the channel. Don't forget you can check me on my socials, which are listed down in the description below. And of course, do subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all content going forward, which will include a lot of Witcher 4 content as we get more information. But until then, I shall see you all next time.